They chained me for slaughter, but the human who bought me chose to save me instead." The smell of the Zareth Prime Market was thick with smoke, blood, and old oil. Traders shouted over one another, selling everything from rusty ship parts to cages filled with half-dead creatures. Among them, in the far corner, was a small cage of black steel. Inside sat a girl, no, not human, but close enough to make Jace pause mid-step. Her skin was pale silver, like moonlight trapped in flesh. Her hair was long, tangled, and dull with dust. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, her thin arms wrapped tightly around them. She didn't look up when people passed. The crowd around her laughed. "Too skinny to eat," one alien snorted. "Too weak to work," another said. The merchant, a fat, scale-covered creature, waved his hands. "Special price today, 100 credits for the meat." Jace should have kept walking. He had come to this filthy market for spare engine coils, not trouble. But something about her made him slow down. Maybe it was the way her shoulders shook. Just a little, even though she made no sound. He took a step closer. The merchant grinned at him. "You have good taste, human. She's exotic. Meat from her kind is very soft. You want her?" Jace ignored him and crouched near the cage. The girl finally looked up. Her eyes were a soft glowing blue, but empty, like they had been emptied long ago. Her lips moved, barely a whisper. At first he thought he misheard. Then she said it again, "Sold for meat. Human, hold me. Use me, just get me out of here." The words hit him like a punch. There was no hope in her voice, only desperation. She wasn't begging to be saved. She was bargaining to be taken. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Names don't matter in cages." The merchant banged his hand on the bars. "Don't talk to her unless you're buying. 100 credits cheap." For something still breathing, the crowd laughed again. One tall alien even leaned in to tap the bars with a claw. The girl flinched hard, curling tighter into herself. Jace felt a twist in his chest. He didn't plan this. He didn't think it through. But his hand went to the pouch at his belt. He tossed the merchant a handful of credits. The merchant's eyes lit up. "Good choice, human. Enjoy your..." "Open it." Jace cut in. The lock clicked. The door swung open with a squeal. The girl didn't move. Jace reached out a hand. "Come on." She looked at his hand like it was a strange weapon. Slowly she reached up, her fingers shaking as they touched his. He pulled her gently to her feet. She was lighter than he expected, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. The market noise faded in Jace's mind as he led her away, but not everyone was ignoring them. From the corner of his eye, he caught sight of two figures watching. From the shadows, they weren't customers. They weren't merchants. They were following. She must have noticed too, because she suddenly gripped his arm hard. "If they see me with you, you're dead." He glanced at her. "Who are they?" Her voice dropped even lower. "You don't want to know." The weight in her words was enough to make his stomach tighten. But before he could ask again, someone shouted from behind, "Hey, human. That meat belongs to someone else." Jace didn't look back. He pushed forward, weaving through the crowd, pulling her along. The smell of the market grew worse, the air hotter. He could hear footsteps following them now fast, closing in. They reached the edge of the market where the docks began. Metal walkways stretched out to rows of ships. His ship, the Wayfarer, waited near the end, but when he stepped onto the docking platform, the girl froze. She stared at the sky. Above them, black-marked ships were landing, not traders, not hunters for food. Something else. Her grip on his arm tightened again. She leaned close to his ear and whispered one word that made his blood run cold. Collectors. Jace had heard of them. Everyone in the Outer Rim had. They didn't trade. They didn't bargain. They took what they wanted, especially living things with value. The girl's voice trembled. "If they take me, you'll never see me again." The sound of boots hitting metal echoed closer. Shouts carried over the crowd. Jac, he knew he should. Let go, walk away, and pretend he never saw her. That was the smart choice. That was the safe choice. Instead, he pulled her toward his ship. Run! Her bare feet slapped against the metal walkway as they moved, faster and faster. The shouts behind them grew louder. They reached the ramp of the Wayfarer. Jace slammed the control panel, and the ramp began to rise. But just before it closed, a shadow moved at the edge of his vision. One of the black-marked figures had made it onto the platform. The girl pressed herself against Jace's side, her breath ragged. "You don't understand," she whispered. "They won't stop." The figure took a step forward. And in that moment, Jace knew whatever trouble he just bought, it was only beginning. The black-marked figure didn't rush. He didn't have to. He walked toward them slowly, as if he already knew they couldn't escape. His armor was matte black, his helmet reflecting the dull market lights. The symbol on his shoulder, a jagged red line through a silver circle, was burned into Jace's memory from old bounty reports. Collectors.jac, he kept his body between the girl and the man. The ramp of the Wayfarer was almost closed, but the collector spoke, his voice cold and mechanical. Through the helmet. "Step aside, human. That's not yours." "She's mine now," Jace said, his voice low but steady. The collector tilted his head. "You think buying her from a market means you own her? You think credits matter to us?" The girl clung to Jace's arm, shaking. "Please," she whispered, "don't argue. Just go." But Jace cut her off. "Get inside." She hesitated, fear locking her in place. The collector took another slow step forward. His hand went to the weapon at his side. Jace's instinct screamed. In one quick motion, he shoved the girl up the ramp and hit the panel again. The door sealed shut between them and the market's chaos. Inside the ship, alarms were already flashing, red motion trackers picking up incoming signals. Multiple. Jace ran to the cockpit. The girl followed, clutching the wall for balance. Her voice was tight. "You're going to die if you keep me. They'll burn your ship out of the sky just to get me back." Jace flicked switches, powering the engines. "You think I don't know that? Then why?" "Because I don't leave people in cages," he snapped. Eyes on the controls. The ship lifted off with a roar. Through the forward view, the market shrank below them. But above, shadows moved, 3 black-marked ships breaking atmosphere, turning toward them like predators scenting prey. The girl gripped the back of the pilot's chair. "They're faster than you. Not if I get to hyperspace first. They'll still follow. They have ways." Jace glanced at her. "Then tell me what you're not saying." Her lips parted, but she hesitated, as if the truth was too heavy to speak. Finally she said, "I wasn't just being sold for meat. I was property. I escaped." She swallowed hard. "The ones who owned me, collectors, they don't let things go, ever." The cum crackled to life, a deep voice echoing through the cabin. "Unknown human vessel, power down and surrender the cargo. Do this, and you will live." Jace leaned forward, his hands tightening on the controls. Not happening. A blast of red plasma flashed past the cockpit glass, close enough to rattle the ship. The girl flinched and grabbed the arm of his chair. "You can't fight them. You have to hide." Jace smirked without humor. "You ever see a human try to outrun death?" The ship dove sharply toward the planet's upper atmosphere, engines screaming. The pursuing ships followed, their weapons firing in deadly rhythm. The Wayfarer jolted under the shockwaves, hyperdrive in range in 20 seconds, Jace muttered. The girl's voice was a whisper now. "If you take me, there's no going back for you. You'll be hunted forever." Jace glanced at her just for a second. "Then I guess I'm already in it." The hyperdrive warning lit up green. Jace slammed the lever forward, and the stars outside stretched into white lines. For a brief moment, there was silence. The girl sank into the co-pilot seat, her breathing uneven. She looked at him like she was trying to understand something. "Why?" Jace shrugged, his eyes on the swirling tunnel of hyperspace. "Because I've seen what happens to people when no one stands up for them, and I'm tired of watching." She didn't reply. She just sat there, staring at him, as if unsure whether to trust him, or whether he was even sane. But outside, far behind them, somewhere in the darkness of space, the collectors were already plotting their next move. The hum of hyperspace was supposed to be comforting. To most travelers, it meant safety, distance, time to breathe. But for Jace, the silence felt wrong. He had been a smuggler long enough to know when someone was still on his tail. And the girl still, curled in the co-pilot's seat, wasn't relaxing either. Her glowing blue eyes stayed fixed on the swirling tunnel outside. But it wasn't awe he saw there. It was dread. "They'll find us," she said softly. Jace glanced at her. "Where?" "In hyperspace. No one can track this far." She shook her head. "Collectors can." Her tone made him pause. She wasn't guessing. She knew. Before he could press her for more, the ship's sensors beeped a sound that should have been impossible in hyperspace. A blinking dot appeared on the screen. Then another. "They're behind us," Jace muttered. "They're inside the route," she corrected, her voice sharp. "They'll force us out." As if on cue, the stars outside flickered. The tunnel of light trembled like glass about to shatter. Jace's hands flew over the controls, trying to stabilize the jump, but it was no use. With a violent lurch, the Wayfarer was ripped back into normal space. They were floating above a dead world. A cracked black surface stretched below them, no oceans, no green, just scars from some ancient war, and 3 black-marked collector ships were already in formation. Comes hissed alive. "Last warning, human, power down." Jace's knuckles whitened on the controls. Not happening. He shoved the throttle forward, diving toward the planet's surface. Laser fire lit up the void, searing past them. The girl gripped the chair, eyes wide. "Where are you going?" "Down. You'll never make it through the atmosphere before they..." She stopped mid-sentence as Jace jerked the ship into a spin, skinning the edge of a jagged canyon that cut across the planet. The enemy ships followed, but the walls of the canyon forced them into single-file pursuit. "They won't stop," she said. "Then they'll have to catch me." For a moment, the canyon walls blurred past in dizzying speed. The Wayfarer skinned so low that shards of rock scraped the belly of the ship. Behind them, plasma blasts tore chunks from the cliff face, filling the air with clouds of dust. But the girl's gaze sharpened suddenly. She pointed to a narrow slit in the canyon wall. "There." Jace saw it, a barely wide enough gap. "Number." Pilot in their right mind would try it. He grinned. "Hold on." The Wayfarer tilted sideways, metal screaming as they scraped through the opening. The pursuing ships didn't dare follow. Inside, the slit opened into a vast cavern glowing with faint green light. Huge crystal spires rose from the ground, pulsing softly. Jace slowed, letting the ship's lights sweep over the alien shapes. "What is this place?" he asked. The girl's voice was quiet. "A grave," Jace frowned. "Whose?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer to the cockpit glass, staring at the glowing crystals as if they were familiar. "My people used to hide here. Before the collectors found us." Jace's stomach tightened. "And now? They'll still come," she said. "They'll burn this whole place just to get me." The sensors beeped again, faint signals outside the cavern. The enemy ships were circling back, searching for a way in. Jace looked at her. "You said you escaped. From where?" Her eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of something beneath the fear-anger. "From the place where they cut us apart, piece by piece, and sold the rest." Before Jace could reply, the ship's hull shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. "They found us," she whispered, and this time Jace realized she wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid for him. The cavern's green glow flickered across the cockpit, shadows dancing along the walls like restless ghosts. Jace had killed the engines to mask their heat signature, but it left the Wayfarer in silence, just the faint hum of life support and the sound of his own breathing. The girl sat in the co-pilot seat, her knees drawn to her chest again. She hadn't spoken since the cavern roof shook from the collector's scans. Her eyes stayed on the crystals outside, but Jace could tell she wasn't really seeing them. Finally, he broke the silence. "You never told me your name." Her voice was low, almost like she didn't want to give it away. "Lysara." He repeated it, testing the sound. "Lysara, you said your people hid here before the collectors found you." Her lips tightened. "Yes, this planet was one of the last places we could live free. The caves shielded our scent, our heat. But the collectors, they always find a way." Jace leaned back in his chair. "What do they want with you?" She glanced at him, and for the first time, her expression hardened. "You don't really want to know." "I do," he said. She took a slow breath. "Our bodies make something rare. A fluid in our blood, in our marrow. It can heal almost any wound, reverse aging, cure sickness. To the collectors, we're not people. We're supply." Jace's stomach twisted. "They sell it?" "They harvest it," Lysara said, her voice flat. "While we're still alive." The green light outside shimmered across her silver skin. Jace thought of the bruises he'd seen, the way she was too light, too thin. "That's why you were in the market. You got too weak for them to keep?" She nodded once, not looking at him. "When our production slows, they sell what's left for meat. They don't waste anything." Jace clenched his jaw. "How long have you been running?" Her voice caught slightly. 17 days. Before that, years in a lab. "I don't remember sunlight. I don't remember a sky." The silence that followed was heavy. Jace could feel the weight of it pressing down, mixing with the stale air of the ship. Outside, the cavern shook again, faint vibrations rolling through the ground. The collectors were still searching. Lysara's eyes flicked toward the hull. "You should let me go. Slip me out through the side hatch. They'll follow me, and you'll be safe." Jace almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Safe? You think I'll be safe knowing I left you to them? You barely know me." She said. "I know enough," he replied. Her gaze softened just slightly. "Humans are strange." Jace smirked faintly. "You haven't seen strange yet." But before Lysara could answer, a sharp tone erupted from the sensors, a deep, steady ping. The collectors had locked onto their position. "Time's up." Jace muttered, firing the engines to life. The green glow outside vanished in a blur as they lifted from the cavern floor. The cum crackled open. The same cold voice as before spoke. "Human, this is your last chance. Surrender the asset, and we will let you live." Lysara's hand hovered over the cum controls, as if she was about to answer. But Jace reached out and switched it off. "No more talking," he said. "If they want you, they'll have to take you from me." Her eyes widened. "They will try." Jace glanced at her. "Then they'll see what happens when you try to take from a human." Outside, black-marked ships descended like vultures, weapons glowing in the darkness. And Lysara, for the first time since he met her, wasn't just afraid. She was watching him like maybe, just maybe, he could win. The Wayfarer shot out of the cavern mouth like a bullet, leaving behind a storm of shattered crystal dust. But the moment Jace cleared the canyon, the black-marked ships moved in. 3 of them, flying in perfect formation, their weapons already warming. "Brace," Jace muttered, pushing the throttle to its limits. The ship groaned in protest, warning lights flickering. A plasma bolt streaked past the cockpit, close enough to leave a molten scar along the hull. Another struck the shields, rattling the cabin like an earthquake. Lysara gripped the console. "You can't outrun them forever." "I don't need forever," Jace said. yanking the ship into a sharp dive toward the planet's jagged surface. I just need one good opening. The enemy ships split, two diving after them while the third climbed higher, circling to cut. Off their escape, the canyon walls blurred past again. But this time Jace didn't go low, he skinned the edge, letting the ship's sensors map the terrain. Why not just jump to hyperspace? Lizara asked over the roar of the engines. They'll lock on again the second we jump. I need to burn their eyes out first. The ship's proximity alarm screamed as one of the collector ships swooped in close. Jace rolled the Wayfarer hard to the left, skimming so close to the cliff wall that sparks lit up from the wingtips. The pursuing ship clipped a spire and spun out of formation, disappearing in a flash of fire against the rock. One down, Jace said through gritted teeth. The second ship stayed on them, its guns hammering the shields. The cockpit filled with the sharp smell of overheating systems. They're not going to stop, Lysara said, her voice urgent. Then, almost hesitantly, I can help. Jace shot her a glance. With what? You don't have weapons. Her glowing eyes locked on his. Not the kind you use. Before he could ask what she meant, she closed her eyes and pressed her palms flat against the co-pilot console. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a faint hum filled the air, like static. The sensors spiked. The pursuing ship's targeting systems went haywire, firing wildly in the wrong direction. Jace didn't know what she'd just done, but he didn't waste the chance. He pulled a hard spin, swung behind the disoriented collector craft, and unleashed a full burst from the Wayfarers. Guns. The ship exploded into a fireball. That was impressive, he said. Glancing at her, her breathing was heavy, like the act had drained her. It won't work twice. And now they know I can do it. Jace's eyes flicked to the radar. The third enemy ship was closing fast. Then we make this the last run, he said, setting a course straight toward open space. Lysara looked at him sharply. What are you doing? Something stupid, Jace replied. He pushed the engines to full burn, heading directly toward the last ship. At the last possible moment, he cut power to the main drive and triggered the Wayfarer's rear thrusters, flipping the ship around in mid-space. The collector ship overshot them, and Jace fired everything he had. The explosion lit up the darkness. Silence followed. No more signals on the radar. Lysara stared at him. You're insane. He gave a crooked smile. Probably. But deep down, Jace knew this wasn't over. They had just burned 3 of the collector's ships. That wouldn't scare them. It would only make them angrier. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the ship, he could almost hear the next wave coming. The Wayfarer drifted in the quiet darkness of deep space, far from the cracked planet they had just escaped. No signals on the radar. No ships in pursuit yet. Jace leaned back in the pilot's chair, his heart finally slowing. But when his eyes drifted toward the co-pilot seat, Lysara wasn't there. He found her in the medbay, standing stiffly in front of the mirror. The dim lights cast silver shadows across her skin. Her fingers traced the cold metal collar locked around her neck. You could have died back there, she said, not looking at him. So could you? Jace replied, stepping inside. She turned to him. Do you even know what this is? She tapped the collar. It's not just a shackle. It's a tracker. And if it stays on me, they'll find us. No matter where we go. Jace's jaw tightened. Then we take it off. Her eyes narrowed slightly. It's not that simple. The moment it loses power, it sends a signal. A final beacon. Then we'll make sure we're ready when it does, Jace said, already moving toward the equipment locker. Lysara hesitated, her voice softer now. Do you even know how to do this? Jace glanced back at her. I've broken worse things than a lock. Minutes later, she sat in the medbay chair while Jace worked over the collar. The hum of the ship felt louder here, almost like it was holding its breath with them. He used a plasma cutter the size of his palm, careful to keep the beam low. The metal hissed, releasing the sharp scent of scorched alloy. Lysara's eyes stayed, locked on his, unblinking. Why are you really doing this? You could have left me in that market. You could have walked away in the cavern. Why risk yourself again and again? Jace paused, meeting her gaze. Because someone once risked everything for me. And I didn't deserve it. This is me, paying that forward. Her lips parted, but she didn't answer. The collar hissed again, splitting just enough for him to wedge a pry tool into the seam. One last twist, and the lock gave way with a sharp click. For the first time since he met her, Lysara's neck was free. She reached up, touching the bare skin like she wasn't sure it was real. Then the medbay alarm screamed. Jace's eyes shot to the console. A pulsing red light blinked on the scanner. They know, he muttered. The beacon triggered. How far? She asked, already standing. He glanced at the readout. His stomach dropped. Too far for them to be here yet. But close enough that they'll jump straight to us. Lysara's hand rested on the edge of the console. Then we run. Running. Won't cut it this time, Jace said. His mind was already racing through options. The collectors wouldn't just send a few ships now. They'd send a fleet. Lysara looked at him steadily. Then we fight. There was no fear in her voice. This time, only resolve. Jse gave a grim smile. Good, because I have one stupid plan left. The Wayfarer's engines screamed as Jace pushed them harder than they were ever meant to go. The stars outside blurred, but the sensors told the truth. 6 collector ships had jumped into the system, their black-marked hulls cutting through. The void like blades. They're spreading out, Jace muttered, watching the tactical display. They'll box us in. Lysara stood behind his chair, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Her voice was calm. Then we don't let them close the box. He looked back at her. You have something in mind? She met his eyes, a flicker of determination. There, I can do what I did before, but bigger. If I focus on all their targeting systems at once, I can blind them for a few seconds. A few seconds isn't enough, Jace said, shaking his head. It will be, she replied, if you use it to do something impossible. Jace smirked faintly. Good thing impossible's my specialty. He keyed the come to manual broadcast and locked onto the nearest collector ship. This is your last chance. Turn back. The reply came instantly, cold and sharp. We do not bargain with thieves. Jace cut the channel. Figures. The enemy ships moved in. Weapons glowed. Hot in the dark, Lysara stepped to the console, placing both hands on it. Her eyes closed, her breath slowed. The cabin lights flickered as a strange low hum filled the air, almost like the ship itself was resonating with her. Now Jace, she whispered. Every collector ship on the display stuttered targeting. Locks vanishing all at once. Jace didn't hesitate. He yanked the throttle and dove the Wayfarer straight toward the largest ship in the center. At the last moment, he triggered the gravity slingshot maneuver, skimming the collector's hull so close that the ship's mass catapulted them forward at impossible speed. The sudden acceleration crushed them into their seats, but it hurled the Wayfarer straight through the enemy formation. The blind collector ships fired wildly, hitting each other in the confusion. 2 exploded instantly. Another spun out of control, colliding with its wingmate. But the biggest ship was still alive, its systems recovering fast. They've locked on again, Jace warned. Lysara staggered, gripping the chair. I can't do it again, not at that scale. Jace's jaw tightened. Then I'll finish it the old-fashioned way. He armed the Wayfarer's last torpedo and turned back toward the massive ship. The enemy's guns blazed, lighting up the void, but Jace weaved through the fire, closing the distance. Jace. Lysara's voice was quiet now. If you die, not planning on it, he said, but his tone made it sound like a lie. At the perfect range, he fired. The torpedo streaked forward and slammed into the collector's weapons array. The explosion ripped across the ship's hull, silencing its guns. The Wayfarer roared past the crippled giant and shot into the safety of open space. Silence filled the cockpit, except for the steady hum of the engines. Jac leaned back, letting out a long breath. "We're clear, for now." Lysara looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then softly she said, "You're free now, Jace." He shook his head, eyes on the stars. "No, we're free." She smiled faintly, the first true smile he'd seen on her face, and turned to viewport, watching the endless black. Somewhere out there, the collectors would be regrouping, plotting their next hunt. But for tonight, they had one. And for the first time in her life, Lysara believed freedom might be more than just a dream.